And we are live. What's up, everybody? Seabass back from Bass and Beer Radio. We got Paul in the house and Mr. Thomas with Fishing the DMV, who I am very stoked to have joining us tonight, especially for this very
controversial
topic that we are going to be talking about tonight. And I have a strong feeling that I might have a little bit of different opinions than you and Paul might. So I'm interested to let's get into this actually, and we got a lot to discuss in a short amount of time, because you know how we do. We could go all night long talking about this fishing stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And the important thing to remember here, you know, I want to kind of preface this before we get into like our base conversation. The main reason that I'm interested in these rules changes that we're going to be talking about is how it trickles down. Because that's what matters to us. You know, we fish local tournaments, we fish local trails. How is it going to, you know, how is that stuff going to trickle down? That's my main reason for my kind of obsession with following this recently. But I just wanted to lead off with that, because that, you know, these major trails kind of set the standard for the rules that we follow at the lower trails. So we'll see what comes of that. But
in that note, that in some ways I like it, but in other ways it's like, what are you doing?
What do you mean?
In some ways I like going, like, I like limitations in some of the technology.
I actually love the idea of limiting the number of screens and number of transducers for not because it changes anything, because the guys who are good with live scope, they're going to be good whether they have one live scope transducer or they have 15 live scope transducers. Mm-hmm. But it makes the entry level for new people coming in a lot less. You know, just the not needing $50,000 in electronics or whatever to feel like you can compete. If you can, you know, if you got 412, you got your standard 412s, which, you know, we've been running on bass boats for years. 412s and a forward-facing sonar transducer, and like that's all you need to get set up. You know, to fish at a major level, whether you're fishing on Toyota series or, you know, and above. But
it's been a whirlwind of a week for people that are not in kind of like the pulse of this thing versus us who have been in it since Monday when NPFL led this thing off, and Major League Fishing just jumped up from the balcony and landed on the table with what they just dropped about 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it was ago.
Just
like an hour ago.
An hour.
Yeah. I mean, good God. I mean, there were some highs, there were some lows, there were some shocking things. The bass thing about the information rule, that was shocking.
Oh, yeah.
But you can always be safe that Major League Fishing will pull the most craziest shit possible, and they can't walk a straight line. And honestly, at this point, I'm here for it. We need these crazy people in life.
We need that. It's like that. You know, it's like watching the train wreck, right?
Yes. And my God bless them for it. It's you had two people in the room saying, like, you know, we want to just be basics and no video games. And then you had Bass, like, we think about the future and we need this here. And then you had Major League Fishing being like, what if we just create like Elvish? I'm reading this like, who the hell wrote this stuff? Like, it's just so scatterbrained, it seemed like.
Yeah, for sure. So, for those who don't know, there were a lot of things that came out this week about rules for next season for Major League Fishing, for BASS the Elite Series, and for the NPFL. And just to kind of, I just want to kind of summarize it real quick for everyone. NPFL banned forward-facing sonar. You cannot have a forward-facing sonar transducer on your boat. Bass, you can have a forward-facing transducer sonar on the trolling motor. MLF, I can't even begin to summarize that because it's so far. You can use it, but you can only use it one period. And if you can't use it, or if you're not using it, you have to declare the period you're using it on. If you're not using it, you got to put this like orange wrap around it so that they can see that it's covered up. And
Depending on if it's a leap year or not, you're allowed to have it
right.
as well.
You know, if it's the third Wednesday of the 7th month, then you can use it all day. They're kind of all over the place. But one thing that I do like that they did is they, instead of just releasing rules for, you know, their top level, they kind of released the rule changes for the grassroots level as well, or at least made mention of it, even if it wasn't changing, so that like the everyday angler, outside of watching fishing on TV, the everyday tournament angler knows how this is going to affect them. And so I do respect them for that, because I feel like that's important. And I think that's something that BASS missed, because it leaves, for me, like I'm trying to qualify for the Bass Nation National Championship next month. Like, what kind of rules am I going to have for that championship next year? I don't know, so I'm kind of I've got this cloud of doubt around, like, what can I use, what can I not use, how is it going to affect me? Because let's be honest, we're not fishing the Elite Series. None of us are going to fish the Elite Series. Well, I won't say none of us, because Michael Duarte does. He does pop in every.
He excels pretty quickly.
He pops in sometimes, so I won't say all of us, but
most of us, frequent flyer miles.
Most of us aren't fishing at the very, very top level. And I know Matt Heron, pops in every now and then too. So, for the most part, for our viewers, for the people that we know, it doesn't, the rules for the top level don't really affect us outside of an entertainment value. And so I commend MLF for making those announcements about the lower level tiers, the stuff that the everyday person fishes. So,
and that was weird too, because there wasn't a lot there. It's almost like the hot issue when they talked about BFLs and forward-facing sonar. Like, oh, that was a landmine. Let's avoid that, and let's go pick on the kids next. And
well, you know what's crazy about that? I've been hearing for like almost the last month that MLF's they're gonna ban forward-facing sonar and BFLs because the co-angler participation is way down, and then they come out and they're like, yeah, nothing's changed.
Yeah. And that was so strategic, and that's the thing about all this. And there's some other rules that were so interesting that dropped through there, like turrets are gone, trolling motor brakes are gone, and it's funny because what did Humminbird do 2 months ago? Their turret went on massive sale. So how long has this been a thing?
So I would say some of that has to do with. I think some of that might have to do with the sales numbers, as far as the putting it on clearance, because. The turret thing was a hot.
Pretty fishy.
The turret thing was like a hot. That was a hot thing when the turrets first came out. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is such a great idea," and then 6 months later, there isn't a single pro that runs a turret. Because in reality, for the majority of forward-facing sonar fishing, a turret is useless.
No, I don't disagree with the efficiency of using a turret. It's just a very interesting coincidence that it goes on sale
for sure.
a couple months ahead of time, that they say like turrets are gone. And let's say we play with that theory that, okay, they knew about this. When did they make these rules? Because it seems like, if my hypothesis is correct, this has been known with the manufacturers probably since ICAST, I'm assuming. Like, hey guys, listen, we're not going to ban you. We're gonna play ball with you guys, just to let you know, to get you guys ready for your products next year. So because it's all connected.
So James Hall from Bassmaster said on Bass Talk Live yesterday that they were still drafting it within 15 minutes of them making the press release.
Now, if that was MLF, I would believe that, but Bass, really?
Yeah,
interesting.
And I mean that's that's coming from a higher up in Bass. That they were literally working on it until about 15 minutes before they released it to finalize it, to make sure that everything is there. I would say that like the turret thing for Humminbird, that might be a coincidence, because it's not like sales on that suck.
God, yeah.
And it doesn't. I love Humminbird. I'm a huge Humminbird fan, but it doesn't. One, it adds a tremendous amount of weight to the front of the boat. So just from a fishing standpoint, it's a large product. It it hinders your sight view. It doesn't work that well.
How much longer does Garmin have the patent for their cone angle?
Well, let's see. What's the standard? It's 20 years, right?
Is it 20 years? Okay, so yeah.
Or is it 15, 10 years?
You guys bring up some pretty insane points that I really don't think the average person thinks about.
When did power poles come out?
Oh shit. Comment section, please help me out.
That was like I want to say like 2006, 2000, maybe 2003.
So 2013, 2012 is when the 10 footers came out. That was the first monster edition because that's what I have on my boat. So go back that by what, 10 more years?
Yeah, so that would make sense that it would be 20 years for the patent because Minn Kota released the Raptors in 2022 or 2023.
So Hummingbird's forward-facing sonar technology just has to suck for another 10 years?
Yes. Okay. So they got another 10 years. And to be honest, they've made leaps and bounds with it in the last 6 months. I've talked to people who
2000.
use it.
Really?
That makes sense.
In 2000, power pole shower water anchors were introduced to the fishing world.
So it would be 20. It's still 20 years. I mean,
it was that long ago. Wow.
So 20 years for the patent because the Raptors came out in the last 3 years or so. So that does make sense.
Yeah.
But with Mega Live, they've made leaps and bounds with that. It's at least usable now.
That's the standards.
As far as not being at a huge disadvantage versus Active Target and Garmin are still better, but
he doesn't have to ride the short bus.
It's closed. They've closed the gap a lot. And I love Humminbird, but like I mean I have Garmin.
Yeah. I got 360. I still have Mega 360. I really get annoyed with having to pan it back and forth because I have Garmin and Humminbird, and
yes,
me
too.
Scout mode. I get it, but I could just have 360 and it just does its shtick, and that's really nice.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I've said this time and time again, if I could only have one piece of electronics equipment on my boat, it would be 360. I would trade my power poles, my spot lock trolling motor, live scope, everything if I had to keep 360.
And now these rules that were limiting the electronics, including your trolling motors, like the brakes that they were putting on the power poles, that was a BASS rule, correct?
Yes.
That's a BASS rule. So I'm just trying to keep track because there is so many rule changes happening right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep track of exactly which.
So let's start with.
We are.
Why don't we start with, and we'll go through by organization.
Yeah, right.
And we'll kind of review like what they did and kind of discuss the. So we'll start with the first one. We'll start with NPFL. That's the easiest one, right? Because they just said no forward facing sonar.
Yeah, they just said screw you in the butt. We ain't doing it.
And I think it's from a marketing standpoint, genius.
No, they win on all that. On the business side of things, they were extremely smart. I still hold that even though Bass was waffling, NPFL knew kind of where MLF and Bass were, what they were going to do. So let's get ahead and be the first one to say we're banning it completely because we're betting that they're not going to do that. And so we can completely separate ourselves from them. And they took that gamble. And for 48 hours, they were in every headline, which was brilliant.
Right. It really created a lot of exposure. I think a lot of people that had no idea what NPFL was now know who they are. I think the Randy Blockett fan club is going to kind of flock to that.
I hope so.
I believe so as well. I think so as well. But I think it'll be interesting in the viewership and whatnot because so much of it was people complaining they don't like watching it on television anymore because it's boring. So we're going to go back to this old school thing. But the other thing with the NPFL is the broadcasting and the live stream. They need to go back to a different platform, like the 30-minute highlight reels and stuff.
Oh, that's just in general. So for everyone.
I mean for anything in general.
I think the production value of live fishing is great for what it is, but it's not entertaining.
Do both.
8 hours. So somebody, I can't remember who it was, but one of the pros mentioned the other day that like, when you compare this to other major sports,
Greg, you're about to.
They have so much, they have all this viewership. But hey, guess what? They fit their product into less than 3 total hours of viewing time, where a bass tournament is 32. Like who has 30? The average person doesn't have 32 hours to watch what's going on.
I just feel like this is what YouTube and content creators have done forever. You can shoot a long form show and then clip it into smaller bite-sized pieces. Again, this is I think Bass has done the best job of trying to diversify with it.
Which is what Bass. I mean, I think the most popular Bass was when they had the hour-long TV show that showed the highlights of the tournament. It showed the important fish catches, and it told I think the most important thing was it told a story of the tournament. Yeah. So it captured your attention because you want they built this story that it's this duel, even if it wasn't exactly like a head to head, like like one guy was going to blow it out. They made it seem like it was more of a duel between the top 2 anglers. And maybe like an outlier that like sneaks in there, but you created this story with it, and that was so intriguing that like you were going to watch for that whole hour. Live fishing, like I'm gonna I'll tell you like exactly how I watch live fishing, and I watch 8 hours. I watch 8 hours straight of live fishing, but it's on in the background, and when they say Jason Christie's hooked up, I look up at the screen.
and they're basically golf in that sense. And I think what they got to do, what Bass has got to do better with, what Major League Fishing has done better is they'll experiment more. Because I think I don't know their numbers off just for everyone to know, but when you're at work, I always have some kind of fishing on in the background while I'm doing stuff that I really don't want to be doing. And whether it's a clip or just going the full time, I'll have that on in the background. I want to know what their numbers are like on a Saturday or Sunday when you have to deal with your kids or your wife or whatever. Like I don't have time then to do that.
I'm the same way. I watch it way more on Thursday and Friday than I do on Saturday and Sunday. One of the other things, since we're talking about this, that I think could be done better, not by the organization, but not necessarily by the organization, but by the anglers, is in the early days of live fishing, when if KVD was on live, you got an 8-hour seminar of what he was doing. He knew how to control the camera control the audience essentially, and keep the audience engaged into what he was exactly doing. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Hackney is the same way. He knows how to keep the audience engaged. A lot of the anglers that you have on the tours now, like they just stand on the front of the boat and they don't talk to the camera all day. And that is another issue that I think that they could work on and work with the anglers to say, hey, when you're out there fishing, this is what we need you to do. And I get it. Like they're just trying to go out and
they're trying to stay in the zone. They're trying to stay on their fish.
That's their job.
That's what they're supposed to be.
Their job's to go out there and catch fish.
Their job's not to sit on there and educate the general public.
But really, it
television.
is.
It's also, I think it's also person by person basis. Like again, like when Fujita was winning on the lake, it's like, what do you want him to say to the camera? Like, but when Wheeler's on there or Skeet Reese, when he did it at the James, like it's definitely, I think they need to coach the younger guys that become stars on what to do.
Exactly, because Skeet, when you watch Skeet to this day, and Skeet is very entertaining to watch on live. Taku, I can watch Taku fish for 8 hours, no problem, because he's got personality. He talks it out. He's funny, and you can't, obviously, like personality like that you can't coach. But
you're right, he doesn't know English, like smallmouth Disneyland, but his energy is so contagious.
Right, his energy. Exactly.
And I'm watching. I don't know what he's saying, but I'm like completely invested in watching him. When he caught that massive spot at Smith Lake, it was absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what he's saying, but I'm just like completely gripped at, oh, please land this thing. And yeah, it's interesting.
He's got the hype.
But you really need those personalities to make it interesting. Hackney's always great on live because he's funny. He's always making
Matt Robertson is one of the most popular people in BASS in the Elite Series, and where did he finish?
Where did he finish?
Like in the whole entire point series of everything.
He sucked this year.
Yeah, but he's still one of the most popular people.
But
why? Because he's got the personality for it.
Right, exactly. Like Hackney has like the best one-liner that's ever been said in fishing.
Yeah.
And he catches I can't remember where they were, but he's like flipping a jig down the bank and it's slow and he jacks a 6, puts it in the boat, turns around the camera and goes, "Godzilla ain't got nothing on me." Mm-hmm. And it was like it's one of my favorite moments from fishing. He's hilarious. Dan Vaughn said G-Man's hilarious. Right. He's got that personality. He can demand attention. And a lot of this stuff can be like, teaching is what I do. That's my job. Essentially is adult learning. There's certain things that you can teach people to make sure that they're keeping the audience engaged. And it doesn't, you don't have to have the personality of Taku. You don't have to, have that G-Man personality. You don't have to have the, just the stupid amount of knowledge that Aaron Martins or KVD had, which is what made them interesting. But there are things that you can do to keep the audience engaged. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that they could really work on.
Yeah. No, because, I agree with you.
A lot of these younger guys are, they don't have, they're 20, early 20s. They don't have, the life experience to be able to do that. They need to be coached a little bit. Yeah,
that'll be a new rule for MLF next year is you must be an engaging angler.
Oh, I want them to go full WWE Raw. I just want that so bad. Like, let it just be crazy. And I have your comment section up here on my end too. And Greg says something about the hardcore fans and streaming. I just don't want to get into what this whole argument with forward-facing sonar is, where it's one or the other, one extreme. You can have both. You can have the live streaming stuff for the hardcores, and you can also do the short clips. But I feel like these organizations just always want to go to one or the other with every decision they make.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like from a financial standpoint, making that shorter form is not going to cost them a lot of money. They already have all the footage. It's just piecing it together. All they have to do is piece it together and release that 45-minute YouTube video that goes through it, or a 45-minute. They have Bassmaster has FS1. A 45-minute recap that can be played on FS1. They can do, like you said, they can do both. They don't need everything. But my only question to that is, how effective is it going to be in this world of instant gratification where we need to know right now?
Well, and that's the problem, because if you think of any sport right now, you will watch it live in its long form. Baseball is a great example. But then after the fact, you want the ESPN clips. Just tell me what happened. What were the highlights? And I feel like that's the format in general most humans like. I'll watch the Redskins suck live, but then I just want the clips on how bad they sucked later on.
Americans are just lazy. They don't want to put in the effort to watch everything. They just want to see the cool shit at the end.
Well, it's not. Pretty much. I don't even think that it's lazy. It's just that I don't care. Especially... It's apathy, not laziness.
You're right.
So I'm a diehard Orioles fan. I will watch an Orioles game from start to finish. I love baseball. I love other teams, other players. I don't want to watch the full game because I have nothing invested in it. So just show me the highlights. Show me the home runs. Show me the wicked strikeouts, and that's all I need to see as a fan of those other players. I don't want to watch another game. Would I go to a game in a stadium? Sure. If I was in Chicago, heck yeah, I'd go to, I would go catch a White Sox game. I was a White Sox fan when I was a kid, but I don't want to watch them on TV, mostly because they're terrible, but that's beside the point.
No, and that's interesting because baseball is a great analogy for fishing, where you have this old guard trying to keep it the way it was. This is how I watched baseball during World War II, and I don't want to change it. But it's there are things that are evolving here. I had a call-in show last week, and what we came down to was like steroids basically helped lengthen veterans' careers, but it seems like forward-facing sonar is doing the reverse and killing veterans' careers. And it's kind of interesting to see that parallel there with that, and how the conversation went from, at least what I've seen. We need to, how do we limit and put boundaries on technology, to we hate young anglers and their video games, because it really quickly went to just hating on like a McKinney and this younger generation.
So I have a, did you happen to catch Panger's podcast from yesterday, the 4-hour long one?
That's what I was going to do tonight on my drive.
So listen to that, and you'll see there's a common theme on every angler that they have on there, and they have anglers that are both, that we 100% know are pro forward facing sonar, and 100% against, or what we think are 100% against it. Mm-hmm. They all said the same thing. That just give us a split. Every single one of them said, why don't we just do half and half with and without? Because it shows the varying techniques. The guys who are good with forward-facing sonar, they get their forward-facing sonar tournaments to have the technique that they're good in. And, you know, if you have a tournament without it, where it's a sight fishing tournament or something, other people have their strength. And you're not relying on one technique throughout the year, and it shows a diversity in angling ability.
Greg, my only argument against Greg saying they can all learn it, and yes, they can learn it, but to ignore the fact that somebody younger that is much more advanced with technology can advance in it quicker, I think is wrong. Like, dude, you're not gonna take Rick Clunn and give him forward-facing sonar and expect him to be as good with it as Trey McKinney. I don't think that's a legitimate argument.
Maybe not as good, but Rick Clunn,
good, and I know Rick Clunn is not
very good with forward-facing sonar.
I'm not saying he's bad with it. I never said he was bad with it. I'm just saying Trey McKinney's better with it. And why?
But,
I mean, Rick Clunn's freaking 80 years old.
Here's the existential crisis I think anglers should have. If this was baseball, you can't just say Jamie Moyer deserves to be a starter indefinitely just because of his legacy. At some point, statistically, you are not good enough. Yeah, you're not good enough, and you no longer can play. I'm sorry. It's either you got old, you lost your skill, something changed, and you no longer can compete at that level.
So, it's great that you mentioned Jamie Moyer when we're doing this baseball competition or comparison, because when Jamie Moyer got older, guess what he did? He changed his technique to make himself stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read this comment that was posted between Mike Neary and Tony. Mike Neary from Dreamcatchers. Is it
Yes.
Dreamcatchers Fishing? Yeah.
Dreamcatchers Outfitters.
Dreamcatchers Outfitters. And so Mike said this on something about the forward-facing sonar. He says, imagine this. You're a batter in the major leagues. I'm a pitcher who throws 95 miles an hour. You're wearing me out at every bat, hitting .75. Over the winter, I lift and find an exercise program that has me throwing 103, and I have developed a nasty cutter. You go 0 and 50 against me in the next season. Do you ban me from baseball, or do you figure out how to compete better? He says forward-facing sonar is the same argument, which I can agree with that in other ways. You can be professional and adapt to every changing competition, or I wanted to say competitor, or you can be a bitch and complain about the unfair advantage because you refuse to change your ways.
So
I agree with that, but then Tony, who unfortunately cannot be with us tonight, he's about to head over to Africa.
Wow. Okay.
He says more like every pitch in the league picked up 8 miles an hour and a nasty off speed because of the breakthrough available in the whole roster's field. The top guys are still going to be the top dogs, but the ERA as a whole catch rate in this scenario has drastically changed.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the statistical differences between pre-live scope era and post-live scope era. Yeah, there will be a change statistically. Like
it's insane,
big time.
Yeah.
It's an insane change.
Tommy Sanders on the last Bassmaster Live, Tommy Sanders actually touched on that, and the average Elite Series fisherman, as far as fish catch per day, the average Elite Series fisherman today is better than Eric Martin's. 4.8 fish per day is what the average was across the Elite Series this year. That's insane.
It is wild.
And again, it's because of the 1%ers. Because again, so I had Jake Norman on, who runs Lake Fork and Toledo Bend for the Texas Department of Wildlife Resources. He did almost a 3-year study on forward-facing sonar, where he interviewed everybody at a dock. Catch rates, do you have it or do you not? Statistically, it's insignificant, the data he gathered, comparing people that had it versus people who didn't have it on catch rates. And that was after viewing thousands of people. But he did, even on the interview, contend that if you are a better angler,
what's up, Pete?
It would be different. And it's, again, if you gave a professional a 2-second advantage and you watched it, it would look like this insane advantage that he'd have. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, because so many people are not adopting it like a couple are. And so it makes this lead that they have look much bigger.
Yes.
Because there's people that refuse to play the game.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. There's people who refuse to play the game, and the average,
or struggle to play it.
The average skill level of the anglers is so far ahead of what the average angler thinks is a good angler. Like what the average angler thinks, what the average fisherman that's watching YouTube thinks is a good angler, like the skill level of a good angler. I don't think they realize how far above that what they think is the top level these guys actually are. So any sort of advantage is going to get very
we have to go back and think about the information and the technology that is readily available now with a simple Google search compared to what Rick Clunn came up with when Google was not even
I've mentioned that before. That's one of the arguments that you hear from a lot of the older anglers. Well, I've been doing this for 30 years, and this 19-year-old kid can come out and he knows as much as I do, and it's because of forward-facing sonar. It's not. I'm not saying forward-facing sonar is a part of it, but the access to information in this day and age is ridiculous compared to what it was 10 years ago.
But it's also like, again, and this is why so many things, it's not a 1 or a 0, it's not black and white. They're not counting high school fishing, college fishing. All of the grassroots way that they home grow talent now is preposterous with how good it is. And so now you're getting kids like a McKinney and so many other young anglers that are coming out of college again, if we're gonna go back to the baseball analogy, it's almost like football. Like in baseball, you need 50 minor leagues. In football, you're pretty much a pro right out of college. It just goes college straight to the NFL. And that's how good I think these high school and college anglers are. They don't need a lot of cleaning up from college to the Elite Series.
Totally agree. And that was one of the things I was going to touch on is how it's reduced the learning curve between starting major tournaments at a younger age, the access to information. I mean, I love that the pros put out information, but then they can't use that as an excuse. Like they've spent the last 15 years of the YouTube life cycle putting everything they know on the internet to make money. Like that's they had to do what they had to do, right? So they're making YouTube channels and they're putting all of this information out there. Well, now once that information is out there, it's all readily accessible to a young angler and a high school angler. If they want to be a professional and they want to dedicate the time, who has more time to watch YouTube videos than a high schooler?
Well, yeah, and this is the thing too. It's again the lifespan of an angler or an athlete in general. The older you get as an athlete in any sport, it is hard to change what got you there, period. But that's what makes it cool when a Cal Ripken does what they do. It's cool when a Tom Brady's like, I don't care about the money. I just want more rings. That is a rarity that we worship, not that you're entitled to stay a professional indefinitely.
Agreed.
And that's what's this whole thing has really jaded me to that, where I feel like a lot of professionals just don't want to give up being a pro. And it's like, it's not an entitlement. Learn. do better or you'll lose your job. Like that,
Right.
that's how it is.
And it's not like and nobody thinks that you need to give up your spot because you're older, but you definitely need to, just because so Randy Blockett uses this analogy all the time. And I dislike Randy Blockett a lot. If nobody knew
He
that.
dislikes Randy Blockett a lot.
His excuse is,
it's
well,
a
I used to throw this bait on Lake of the Ozarks. I could, 20 years ago, I could throw this bait and I could catch 40 fish a day. Now I don't even get a bite on it. Mm-hmm. You didn't make any point. You just said, oh well, I didn't adapt to different situations. I didn't adapt to. I didn't adapt to fishing pressure. I didn't adapt to anything. You just tried to do the same thing over and over again, and it stopped working. And now you want to use that as an excuse to get rid of something you don't like.
But if forward-facing sonar didn't exist, the same players would still be players.
I totally. I have. Yeah. Okay.
And there's a lot of people who aren't players now that were players because they can't keep up with the forward-facing sonar.
That would be a fun show. What kids would not be here without forward-facing sonar? And you just put them up and you say swipe left or right on that.
That would be super interesting.
So that's one of the big conversations that came this week too, or that it's came not just this week, but over the last 6 months. Is if you take forward-facing sonar away from these people, the standings are going to change. I don't think they're going to change that much.
They will,
because. If you look at the amount of time that, and this is nothing against older anglers, but when you get older, and I'm not saying older like old, as you get older, you start a family, you have other business ventures that may be taking up your time. You
lose your edge.
Well, it's not that you lose your edge, but you can't be what's his name? The short guy that got DQ'd at the St. Lawrence.
Tyrion? Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Well, I can't think of his name.
That guy. His name is.
He won the Open on the Bay. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but he spends 300 days a year on the water.
But this is with if you read any biography of any athlete or CEO, it's that you have an edge, you have a fire, and you don't have that forever. You get into that lull.
No, totally agree.
And you're right, because what happens? You have like Kevin Van Dam. People are like, "Oh, did he lose his edge?" No, he has sponsorship commitments. He has a family. He's spread too thin, and that's what happens when you you make it. You get into that lull, which again,
JT Tompkins. That's his name.
But that's what makes like a Tom Brady, a Michael Jordan, that they're so mentally broken, because you have to be that psychotic, that they keep pushing. And that's the number one thing, is just to be number one, period. And it's a human condition that you just get settled into a pattern of behavior once you get there.
Well, and your priorities change.
Yeah.
Where when you were 25, fishing was your number one priority. Mm-hmm. Now you're 35. And your 6-year-old is now your number one priority. There's so many things that change as you get older that it doesn't surprise me that younger guys are dominating it, because
you don't take risks.
But
right. I mean, look at music. How many people have made great music, the bands that you love, when they're in their 80s, when they're in their 60s? They usually have that weird decade where they just make insanely good music, and then they kind of just play the greatest hits the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's very, very rare that you hear, you take classic bands. I mean, have you heard Rolling Stones just released a new album? It's not 1970s Rolling Stones.
No, it's not.
I mean, and it's not terrible. It's not terrible, but it's not that game-changing music that they had in the 70s. So it totally makes sense what you're saying. Is as you get older, it's harder and harder to get out of your comfort zone, and it's somebody. I'm trying to think of who said it. It may have been. I think it was the guy from.
I guess people will shut up, Andy. I mean, we'll see though. I don't think for the NPFLs that you're going to see
Patrick,
though.
but Patrick Walters is still gonna take their money. It's not like taking forward facing sonar away is gonna keep Patrick Walters from doing it. You know, if you look at somebody like that, everybody says, "Oh well, the rookies." Well, Patrick Walters is probably one of the best live scopers on the planet, and if you take it away, he's still going to beat them, and nobody's going to argue that if you take it away, he's not going to still win tournaments.
While we're talking about the different rule changes and whatnot here, and this is a little bit off topic, but one of the MLF rule changes was, this is going back to something we talked about a couple minutes ago. One of the MLF rule changes was banning forward facing and 360 in high school and college.
Yeah.
No, don't get me started there. My God.
So,
and the reason for that, and I think we had a comment up here that made me have this thought process, and they're banning it for high school and college because they want these kids to still go out and learn traditional forms of fishing.
They don't want them listening to that rock and roll.
They want them to still learn the traditional forms of fishing without being stuck up on all the new electronic stuff. Which I don't think a ban of it was completely appropriate. Maybe a little bit of a different limitation, like a 9-inch screen or something. Like, what did they do on the one series?
Because again, Jared at Jake's Bait and Tackle, he's the president of his high school fishing club. Half the people don't have boats. You're relying on Good Samaritans.
No, in high school, Tony.
Yeah, in high school. Hey, I have a boat and I have a free weekend. I would like to go be a boat captain.
Right.
And so it's like, did you guys let's say you do the 9-inch screen. What are you telling the guy down the street that wanted to go volunteer? By the way, you got a 12-inch, you can't. Sorry. And that's where it's like, just the logistics of it. It doesn't make sense even in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, like, I've volunteered for youth tournaments. Like, if they put those restrictions on, I'm not volunteering. I'm not pulling that stuff off my boat. I spent way too much time rigging my boat the way that I wanted to undo it and then have to do it again.
And that was a comment I had in my comment section last week. It's like, oh, so if the BFL is outlawed for, you wouldn't do it. It's like, I don't have the time to unthread the transducer just to fish the BFL and then that seems like
I think when you're talking about high school, though, there's a difference between teaching kids traditional fishing patterns and just teaching them how to fish off of electronics.
But
you know what I'm trying to say? Old school guys used to go out and they used to fish, and they used to figure it out that way using your 2D or whatever was available.
But I've been fishing all.
I think it's different now with the forward facing sonar. Like, you need to learn your basic fishing patterns before and then apply the electronics to the fishing.
No. This is you playing Nintendo with your dad. You kick his ass, so he basically throws Nintendo out of the house. That's basically what it is. I mean, I see your side of the argument, but I also just think that there's also a bonus to understanding the basics of shit first before you're just glued to electronics. And I think you could have told that to your kid instead of throwing his Nintendo out of the window and storming out of the house. You could have articulated that better in a different way. But when you don't ban it basically anywhere except whatever that shit show is up top with the pros, and you just target the high schoolers, the optics look bad. They just do. You could have maybe worded it differently or maybe gone a different route. But when you specifically target them when they weren't involved in it, it just seems very like we are old men that hate technology, and we're going to say for your safety or for your knowledge, we're going to take it away from you. It's weird.
I feel like they could have, if they...
I don't think it's that way.
I feel like if they had made the point...
I just disagree with that mindset towards it, personally.
Then how would you limit it?
I feel like if they had just came out and said, "Hey, we want all of our high school anglers to be on a level playing field. This equipment is expensive. It's not accessible to all of our high school anglers, so we want to level the playing field." I think it would have been a much better wording of that.
Or you could just say, year one, we're going to do this in college because there's not boat captains in college. We'll attack college, not high school, because the boat captain is a big issue. But why did they choose high school versus college? It's because of probably the sponsorship dollars and how many of the Lowrance, Humminbird, and Garmin are in all the colleges.
Yeah, like learning patterns. I will say that LiveScope, you want to say, oh, we want to show some traditional patterns. You'll learn more about patterns with live scope than you will with anything else. As a learning tool, it's far and away the best learning tool that's out there.
Tony, they didn't ban it in college,
no.
just high school, which is weird. That's why, like, again, the biggest crux
It's like
I have
having
about
an
this whole
underwater
thing
TV. I don't like it.
is the logistics of it, Tony. Like, that's what bothers me the most. Is I just know so many of my friends that like volunteer their time to help out high school anglers. And it just seems so tone deaf that you're asking people that are volunteering their time to adjust their boats for the kids. And again, whether there's the morality of whether it's right or wrong, it's just like they didn't think about that thing, that it's not their boats that they're adjusting. It's other person's.
I can definitely agree with that. Hunter, I can agree with that point of it for sure.
But also they banned 360, which is just dumb in general.
Yeah.
I think they should have left 360, honestly.
360 has been around for 360 in its like first generation has been around for like 12 years.
I would really love to see all the anglers like on like the elites and shit just going back to using like 360 only and trying to catch fish. Like, I think it would be cool to watch.
Yeah, and MLF likes to do some weird, coked up, crazy events. Let's do this. Let's just take a boomer that hates it, and he has to catch it with scope, and then take the kid, and then he gets to be on the aluminum boat flipping. And we just have 2 cameras on them, and we figure it out. I would watch the heck out of that.
That would be kind of funny. Just like role reversal.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you can only use forward-facing sonar, and you can only use a jig.
Yeah. You're like, what day is it? But speaking of MLF, that we didn't even talk about that. What did you guys think of that team event?
I haven't got a chance to really look into it. Other than Dustin Connell getting a chatterbait jammed into his hand.
Yeah,
that looked gnarly.
I thought MLF was already running some team event that had like.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, they had the 2024 team event.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in Pennsylvania somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it was. I couldn't. I didn't have time.
It seemed like a really. Have you watched any of the shows on TV when they run that?
No.
It's kind of weird to watch because like they all have like these headsets on where they're like talking to each other on the boats.
Yeah. They did away with that.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah. So now that they have a team series where it's just 2 angler, it's like a team tournament, like a Thursday, like a Thursday night jackpot where you got 2 guys in the same boat. They're going out.
The banter was great. Like I really like the banter of having 2 people in the boat together.
I haven't got a chance to watch it. I'll be honest, MLF. My extent of watching MLF is, there's an MLF tournament this week. They just started. It's day 1. Oh wait, they don't record day 1, and then I forget about it.
Yeah, they are the ideas machine that can never execute an idea correctly. If you gave them the iPhone, they would not be able to sell it. Like it's just. I think the team idea, great concept. They can't execute it though, but they'll come up with the great ideas. It's just up for like Bass or the NPFL to then take the ideas and run with them.
Yeah, that team idea, I do enjoy that from a viewer standpoint, or the idea of it, because that's what most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, most of us fish team tournaments. Not all of us fish, draw trails and things like that. But we all fish team. We all fish team tournaments at some point. So it's something we can relate to.
And it's different. You can cut the field down too to have less boats because they're all in the boat together, and then you can go to some different places. Because again, MLF, great idea. Like if we do rotate the field, we can have 30 boats, which means we can go to a smaller lake. We can go to like a Lake Gaston. We can go to the lakes in North Carolina. We can go to what's that lake in Tennessee? Dale Hollow. Like it allows you to go to neat venues because you have a smaller field.
So like Dale Hollow is definitely big enough for.
You think so?
The reason nobody goes to Dale Hollow is because of the slot limit on smallmouth. So nobody wants to have a tournament there because you can't keep. I mean, it's like a ridiculous, like a 20-inch limit on smallmouth. Like
it's stupid.
Like the smallmouth limit, they have to be over 20 inches or something crazy to be able to keep a smallmouth there. So it's like, that's one of the reasons to do. And it's like one of the best smallmouth lakes in the country. So nobody wants to go there because the best fish in the lake you can't keep.
Mm-hmm.
I like Greg's comment. Is anybody surprised that MLF is even still around?
A little bit.
Yes.
Like they're hanging on.
Because they have so much money backing them, I truly think they're just waiting for states to start outlawing weigh-ins and going to catch, weigh, release, because then they basically own that. And so I think they're playing a 10-year long game. It's just if they can wait that long.
I honestly think that is the only part of MLF that I like. I like the weigh every fish and kind of have a total weight. I like that. But that's all I like about it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot. I don't from a viewer standpoint watching it, like it doesn't take away from the viewing pleasure of it that there's no like weigh-in, because I rarely watch the weigh-ins for a bass tournament.
Well, yeah, and I had, when they came to the James River, I had some friends that like, I would rather have MLF come here than bass because they're not moving every fish into one place. It just let them go. And it's like, that's an interest. I didn't think about that. Like, would you rather have bass go there and move every fish up to middle, upper bay, or
up to the northeast? Take every fish to the northeast.
Is one BASS tournament really going to make that much of a difference when you have you have 100 boat local tournament 2 times a weekend, every weekend for 6 months?
I will say it depends on the place, because Aaron Martin, when he went to the Middle River, besides the fish kills, like they pretty much pulled every fish out of that sucker, or a lot of them, because they can't go back. And so I think brackish water fisheries, maybe there's an argument that catch, weigh, release is better because you're not just transporting them all out of the areas. But you're right, for lakes,
you'd be surprised how much the fish move.
Do you think they go back from the northeast all the way down that way?
No.
So there was a
maybe to the flats.
So there was
a Grace Flats when they go from Joppa Town up to there, or the Bush River, something of that nature.
Tank?
No.
So in the late 90s, and I'm not saying that they're going to go back like to like that chop tank or anything like that, but in the late 90s, they radio tagged a couple of release fish.
They did travel.
They went from the northeast to the Bush River in a matter of 2 weeks. That's
Bush River isn't that far though.
Oh, from the northeast,
pretty far.
It's like 25 miles.
Do you think compared to like the Middle River, and I'm talking about more like the salinity level versus distance travel, because of course
it's about the same. It's pretty close. Yeah. The salinity level is pretty close. I mean, to put it in perspective, I've caught redfish at the mouth of the Bush.
Oh wow.
I've caught redfish and blues at the mouth of the Bush. So
we've seen dolphins out of like Pools Island.
It's worse. It is worse toward Middle River. It gets worse as you go down, but the fish also move from other areas down here. Like they move from river to river down here for sure.
Gotta pee.
So like you'll get fish that come out of like Seneca Creek and go into Middle River. They'll come out of Dundee Gunpowder area and move down the bay based on bait, just like they do anywhere else. They'll move through that brackish water. There's no those fish didn't just show up where Aaron Martin's was. They were there for a reason. I could tell you the reason.
Stocked too?
There's some stocking that goes on, but the stocking has greatly helped since we had a fish kill on the Gunpowder in Middle River like 6 years ago. It was actually after Aaron Martin's won that tournament. There was a very, very large fish kill, and it's helped the area come back a lot. But prior to that, there was some stocking, but not heavily. But those fish were there for a very specific reason.
The SAV?
No. They were on bluegill beds.
Which again, then with chicken or the egg. So then, how did the bluegill get there?
Bluegill are always there. The Middle River is loaded with panfish.
Why?
It's just like all of our rivers are.
Okay.
So it's just common. I mean, if you look at the Gunpowder is the same way. There's tons of bluegill in the Gunpowder. If you go back into like the quarries and stuff like that, Bush River's loaded with panfish, crappie bluegills, things like that. But that time of year, and knowing exactly where he caught them, those fish were on bluegill beds.
Why do you think the weights drop off so much on Upper Bay events?
What do you mean? Like during the summer?
Yeah, like in general, the lower end of the spectrum on the tournament weigh-ins, it just usually you see a harder taper as you go down the leaderboard than, let's say, like the James or the Potomac. Or
So
other
not as
title
much
fisheries.
consistency throughout.
Yeah, like you'll have a guy catch like, let's say 26 pounds. I'll be a little sarcastic there, but then like to cut a check, it's
That's
a
not
lot
being
lower.
sarcastic. There was
No,
a
yeah.
there was a tournament in late June. There were two 26-pound bags.
That's about right. Phil. But you can catch a mega bag there.
But everybody,
it's 16
like
pounds.
you'll see, it really depends on the time of year. It depends on how much hydrilla is up. A lot of I feel like a lot of those fishing, especially in the summertime, one, it fishes small. It doesn't even though it's a big area, it fishes small. So there's a couple of really good wintering areas, and the people who can find where those fish are in their transition in the springtime catch massive bags, and everybody else catches 14, 15 pounds. So it is difficult to find those bigger fish. In the summertime, it drops off so much because there's 5,000 acres of hydrilla. And some of it's just impossible to fish. You just can't get to the fish. I think that has a big impact in the summertime.
And it's interesting, like talking to Roger and Scott on the Black Bass Advisory Board for Maryland, who work with the federation up there. I think the way they said it was like there's not enough fish for the size space, if that makes sense. Like there's so much area compared to the population, and so when they spread, it's a lot different than a more condensed kind of fishery.
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that is correct. I'm not saying it's incorrect, but unless the population of fish is super condensed into 100, a half a mile stretch, I've literally watched thousands of fish get caught with 70 to 100 boats in a maybe half mile area. I mean, packed on top of each other. Everybody's culling fish. So you're seeing thousands of fish get caught in a single day out of one area. And you can have multiple areas like that at the same time. I think it's more that there's not the sustainable water is not. There's not as much sustainable water compared to the area, the total area. Would be my best opinion on it. And your fish get really. It doesn't matter if they're talking about the fish.
What's up, Frank?
They're talking about the fish spreading. Well, the fish, in the summertime after the spawn, they get super concentrated too. And if you find them, you found them. Like you can fish one small area and just pound on them and pound on them and pound on them. Because there's just so many fish in that area. And I don't know what causes that, to be honest. I don't really have an idea of what causes that. But
I think it's spawning habitat. I think because there's not as much spawning habitat there as other places, and if it gets affected, there's not other places they can go. So it's very much that you got to make sure like Susquehanna Flats, the flat itself, like that can't have a weird year during their spawn season. You see this in the Shenandoah smallmouth. Like if we have a high water event in June, that kills that spawning generation for that year period. And that I don't know what you can do about that though.
But on the other hand, there's so many. I mean, there's a lot of other areas that they can spawn that are. I mean, you have the entire Sassafras River, you have the entire Northeast River. That 90% of the river has good spawning habitat. Hard bottom, good water clarity type. Kind of your perfect. What you would think is like your traditional spawning areas, and the fish don't spawn in those areas. Like they spawn in grass. So it's like it's like funny. Like they don't. It doesn't matter. They're.
But that's part of the environment.
Having other areas available doesn't necessarily make them change their habits, I guess.
But that gets back to my point. So it's so.
I'm sorry. I was agreeing with you, kind of in a roundabout way.
like how do we protect the SAV to make sure, because it's the same thing like the Potomac River. I remember as a kid, we're like up at DC, man, it was a carpet, and you can just see the grass line slowly just retracting, and now it's like if you go past Belmont Bay, you might find some hidden juice, but it's not like it used to be.
Right. No, it's definitely not.
Grass is
Especially up
dying
around
everywhere.
up around DC. You know, I know some places I used to fish around DC that were, I mean, grass and like 10 foot of water. Like you know, you're fishing hydrilla lines in 10 feet of water, and it was freaking awesome. And that stuff's just gone now. And I don't know what I don't have a reasoning like why it disappeared or what happened. Like what I mean, I know like, so if we take like Conowingo Lake, we lost a lot of SAV up there in 2016, I think it was. It was the year the Elite Series was canceled here.
2018?
Was it 2018? Maybe
it was the same year.
Yeah, it was 2018.
Junior.
It was 2018 because I won a tournament up there. I won a tournament up there right before it happened.
I thought it was like 20.
But that just destroyed the milfoil up there. I mean, I won a tournament there in June. It was on June 18th, actually. It was the first day of the open season up there. And I mean, I won that tournament out of milfoil. I mean, and there was milfoil everywhere. That when that storm came through, it wiped it all out. It was gone by the time I had a club tournament up there in like September, and you couldn't find a strand of milfoil up there. You know, so it's not like, you know, sometimes it's weather. I mean, Danny Rodriguez has told me, you know, prior to Agnes coming through in the 70s, that there was a lot of grass on the bay, you know, on the flats, and when Agnes came through, it destroyed all of it, and it took decades for it to come back.
Yeah, and it's funny because we have this conversation, and I keep coming back to this on my channel, where if you have shoreline cover, if you have SAV, it gives people that just want to flip, pitch, and throw a frog, they have an ability. But then when you look at Lake Gunnersville, and they're trying their best to kill every piece of grass on that stupid place, yeah, of course forward-facing sonar is going to play, because what the hell, the fish are going to school and be on brush piles. Like, that's what's going to happen. And it's such a weird argument, a straw man argument, when people look at Seth Fighter and be like, well, I like that. It's like, yeah, he's throwing a frog around lily pads. If they went to places like that, more people would do that.
Right. I mean, Jordan Lee won Redcrest, throwing a frog on a mat. Yeah. You know, so it's not, and I don't think from the upper level, from what I've heard, it's not that they're, again, I haven't heard too many pros come out and say, hey, we need to ban it completely. Most of them have said, like, hey, we should just have this 50-50 split, so that we can showcase other techniques.
And I feel like I think that's a neat idea.
I love
execute on it.
I do like the idea. I think logistically it's impossible.
Logistically, it would be tough. Not
impossible, but
it's not
tough.
impossible. But I think that's what Bass did, which you've been harping on. I've been harping on my channel. Is you just set your schedule up to where it will favor a more balanced approach. And I think that's what they tried to do here. I think there's 4 or 5 rivers on the schedule next year, if I'm not mistaken.
So you got you have
John's,
you got the Chowan,
and Mississippi. So that's 4.
Is the Sabine on there? I didn't.
Sabine, yeah. No live scope there, boys. Only just 1-pounders.
Actually, so it's funny. Lee Livesey was talking. He said that
someone will scope them. Yeah.
Patrick Walters caught 2 3.5 pounders down there the last time they were there, and they were both on live scope.
Yeah, shocking. Someone figured it out.
Right. So, you know, and that's a 3.5 on the Sabine that's like catching an 8-pounder on the bay. You know, it's
a good schedule.
But
it's a good schedule. It's balanced.
But I think it's the other thing. Let me talk, since we're talking about balance, and we've had the argument about balance. Almost half the tournaments this year were won without forward-facing sonar.
You can't talk about that. It kills the narrative.
4 out of the 9 tournaments were won without forward.
You don't
facing
think
sonar.
that it wasn't used like at all, even before,
Without
like,
it-
in like pre-fishing or anything?
I
like
will
that?
say it wasn't a major factor in the wins on those tournaments.
Yeah.
Ed Lochran won. He was throwing top waters over the grass and throwing chatterbait through the grass. That was on Champlain. Obviously, we know the St. Lawrence was one with it. Smith Lake was one with it. Smith Lake in July is always going to be one with forward-facing sonar. It doesn't matter. Like you can't.
Yeah.
It's going to be one fishing deep brush piles. Like whether it's with forward-facing sonar or 2D, whatever, 360, throwing at the brush pile. That's how it's going to be.
Like if 2D is that easy to fish compared to forward-facing sonar, why aren't they? Why didn't they use 2D?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not
You
saying
can't
that.
follow roamers with 2D.
But it's always going to be. So it wasn't. Taku didn't win that tournament on roamers. He was fishing brush piles. So it's always going to be a brush pile tournament. Is what I'm trying to say. It's always going to be offshore. They're always going to be fishing that style.
And we had this same conversation basically back in the early 2000s when Kentucky Lake was on fire and everything on the schedule was a ledge bite. And so everyone was on top of each other and we had arguments, fights. I had a clip of the guy that just put the boat back on the trailer during that FLW.
Oh, Randy
event and
Haynes.
went home. Randy Haynes. And okay, what happened there? You went to the lake when they were all on 5 spots and it created issues. Go to Kentucky Lake some other time of year where it spreads them out. And it's like history kind of repeats itself, but it often rhymes, or however the saying goes. Like you had that issue in the past where you went at a bad time that created drama. Just change the schedule up a little bit and it might alleviate some of the problems.
Here's the thing about something like a Smith Lake or one of those offshore tournaments. Not necessarily like the ledge tournament, because you're going to get some different techniques in a ledge tournament. You're going to get people cranking. They're going to be hair jigging. They're going to be spooning. You get some different stuff there. But guess what? If you take forward facing sonar away from the pros on Smith Lake in July, they're still going to be in 50 feet of water throwing a drop shot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change how it doesn't necessarily change how they're fishing, or as from a viewer standpoint. You're still going to be. You're still going to have a guy standing on the front of the boat in 50 feet of water with nothing around him throwing a spinning rod. It's spotted bass fishing. Like that is spotted bass fishing in July. You're going to have the 1 or 2 outliers where you get something cool to watch, like when Steve Kennedy was throwing the glide bait, which was awesome. That was really cool. But the majority of the field and the guys in the top are going to be deep drop shotting. They're going to be using 2D sonar. They're going to be using 360. They're going to be finding brush piles, rock piles, and they're going to be fishing offshore. So it doesn't, from a viewer standpoint, it doesn't change a lot.
Yeah, and Andy's question there, I think that's because the largemouth bass population has taken a massive hit because of the Asian carp. Like they need to start stocking Kentucky Lake again with some F1s at some point to help that largemouth bass population. I think that's why you're also seeing this big tick in smallmouth. Kevin,
you don't need forward-facing sonar to catch fish on a brush pile, just like you're saying.
Right. Yeah. So back to our elites. So we got the Smith. That was forward-facing sonar. Wheeler, chatterbait. Cliff Prince won using a chatterbait. The only thing he used forward-facing sonar for was to make sure his fish were still there.
What was he fishing?
What do you mean?
What was he targeting?
As far as grass.
So okay, and I think this is another part.
Is that you go to more grass lakes?
Yeah, you get more grass lakes, and I just, again, so me being whatever, it's like I think bass needs to take more of a stand with this stuff. Like when the St. John's has had this massive issue, they should not go there and be like, guys, figure this shit out. Don't spray. Gunnersville, we're gonna basically take a hiatus here until you guys figure this out, because it is kind of, if we did a better job at just fixing some of these lakes, they would fish better and they'd be more diverse. But if it's a Smith Lake where it's an aquarium with brush and blueback herring, everyone's gonna be doing the same shit.
Right, you're gonna be offshore.
Do you think the states would listen more if BASS was like, we're not showing up because you're not?
Yes, because they would actually have a platform to talk, but they have no balls. If somebody paid them enough money, they would do anything you say, period. You could fillet fish on the front of a boat if the check cleared. They wouldn't care. I truly believe that.
The BASS is never going to do it because the towns, the local townships pay them insane amounts of money to bring to bring those tournaments there. I mean, that's That's why you have tournaments where you have tournaments, is because they're bid. Those tournaments are bid on, essentially.
But and it gets to like and this is something with like how I view some of these anglers right now. When example is like a Scott Martin, he just went out like a week ago, talked about how Okeechobee has these issues and we need to do this and this. He has a value system, regardless of what you think of him personally, that he does care about his lake. The people that live around Lake Gunnersville aren't going to do a damn thing. And there's a lot of classic winners and no one's spoken out about that. And on the same thing with forward facing sonar, for all these people that hate forward facing sonar, how many are actually going to sign up for the NPFL next year? How many are going to put their money where their mouth is?
I said less than 5.
Damn.
That would be my guess. That are currently fishing another tour. Well, I want to put it that way, because I have a feeling you will see, maybe some people.
You're going to see people move over to the NPFL.
I say less than 5 people. Less than 5 people would completely jump. Now you may see more people fishing both.
Yes,
Gerald Swindle even said, "Hey, I like it. It's cool. I'm still going to stay with bass. If the schedule lines up, maybe I'll fish those too."
Because I had the greatest.
But nobody's going to jump ship to it because their sponsors aren't going to pay them to fish that.
Right. No, but the fact is, will they actually go?
I don't think you're going to see the big names. You're going to see some of the. You're going to see the guys that don't want to use the forward-facing sonar going over there. Not the big name. I'm talking,
I
guys
think
like me and you that are trying to make
it. Guys like me and you will never get into the NPFL.
You know what I'm doing.
That is all I'm saying.
I mean, anglers are basically politicians with fishing rods. And what this is all showing is there's a lot of grandstanding, but most of them will do nothing. And that's where I don't know, hopefully a lot of these fans can actually start really thinking about their decision on which anglers they support, because I don't like this fact that they're going to bitch, but when it goes through, they won't back that up. They won't just say like, hey, listen, I'm going to fish bass and I'm going to do the NPFL. There was enough anglers that basically left the BPT because, hey, I can't catch every fish. I suck at it. I'm only good at 5 fish, so I'm leaving this format. Good for you. At least you said that. I respect your opinion. But there's so many that just bitch about forward-facing sonar, and until it's their tour that changes it, they're not happy. Until you serve what this person wants at your restaurant, they're not happy. And I just hate that personality that they have this entitlement. It's just, I don't know. That rubs me the wrong way.
I get that. Frank said the NPFL will have some moves for now, but see them going back. So 2 issues with that, Frank. 1, the NPFL is not considered a top-level fishing league, and sponsors are not going to pay those anglers to fish the NPFL when a lot of their contracts, as we saw with the whole James Watson debacle, say that they have to fish a top-level tour, being the Bass Pro Tour or the Elite Series. And 2, they can't just go back, because if they leave now and go to the NPFL and that's not for them, guess what? They got to come back through the opens, and nobody wants to go through the opens.
Yep.
Because the field in the opens, you have consistently, the way the opens are set up now, from what I've heard from from pro anglers, there are 60 to 70 guys consistently on the opens outside of the locals that jackpot them that are good enough to fish on the Elite Series. So you're not getting you're basically going through the Elite Series to get back to the Elite Series. Plus you have to deal with the 100 local boats that, it's their home lake and they're going to do well on it. It's not as easy as just going over there and being like, I'm not getting paid. I better jump back. Because it's not like, and the NPFL, I say it's not a top level tour. The competition is top level.
If you had to do this though, and you weren't fishing, like, how would you, if you could go back in time, how would you fish the tournaments? Would you do NPFL if you could make it, and maybe some Toyota stuff, and then build up your resume and your sponsors, then make the jump to back? Like, how would you do it again in your journey if you could?
If I had to make that journey, like, I would, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't touch a tournament trail. Even if that's what I wanted to do, focus on YouTube. Build your
Oh,
sponsor.
yeah, okay.
Build your sponsors through YouTube.
Yeah.
Get the financial backing that you need to fish those trails, and then move into it. Maybe not stop tournament fishing, but that wouldn't be the focus. To me, I feel like that's probably the best way to go to it, because then if you try and you fail, you've already built your brand, and you still have a steady source of income within the fishing industry. That would be the way that I would do it.
I remember when I think it was Brett Ehrler or Jason Christie, when they were making the switch from FLW to bass, they talked about how, like, the reason we did it this way is you get your start on FLW, you build up your brand, and then you have the money to go throw at the opens. And that's basically, I forget which one that said it that way. And it was very interesting. Like, their thought was, it's so much money in lift to try to hopefully one year crack it and just have a stellar year. And
it's even harder now, because you have to fish 9.
Exactly. So I don't, God love these people that just throw themselves into the opens, because it just feels like you're just burning money, unless you're the 1%ers or you have that crazy year.
And what if you have that crazy year?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have, so at the end of the open season, your deposit on your for your entry fees for the Elite Series for the next year are due within a month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's $50,000 in entry fees, and you have to have half of it. I think it's half of it, but you have to have that money very quickly. You don't have time to just throw money at it and then have to go find sponsors, and it's just impossible. You have to have that. You have to have that sponsor portfolio before you go in there, for sure.
I wonder if we're going to see more of a rise in regional tournament trails, because I know Texas, Florida, like Carolina, they have good regional organizations to where you can almost make a decent living staying local. And
you can.
I wonder if, as the economy,
Todd Castledine does it.
Yep, Todd does it. I just wonder if, like, as the economy gets shittier, if you're going to see this kind of, you're going to see less people try to make the elites, and just like, hey, I'm just going to stay local and I can make my money this way. I see a lot of guys do that in the kayak world. It's like, I could go do this. Like, Erwin Miner won like $15,000 fishing the Susquehanna River off like a $300 entry fee. It's like, oh, that's a hell of a return. Like, when will that drop with the economy? I don't know.
So, I don't see it. I don't see it dropping.
Really?
That's what they said, 2 years ago when they went to the 9 opens. When they went to requiring 9 opens to qualify for the elites, everybody was, the consensus was, there's no way that they're going to get that many people to do this. But yeah, there's 150 people signed up for all 9 opens. And 2 years ago, the economy kind of sucked too.
Yeah, I can't remember like the 2007, 2008, because that's what a lot of the older guys talk about as being like big crisis time. But I really can't remember back then, like, what it was at the lower levels.
Well, so that I can tell you from a local level, that destroyed the local level tournaments for a long time. That's why in this area anyway. If you look at, so there were really if you look at Bass Nation now, and you look at like their state qualifier trail, you have like 30 boats, 30 to 35 boats. In the early 2000s, I think it was like 2001, they had a state they were doing single state qualifier tournaments, and there was a tournament on the Potomac River that had 230 boats.
Wow.
Jeez.
And that's your Bass Nation, Bass Nation level. That's the drop that you had from like 2001 to 2007, like post 2007. People just couldn't they couldn't afford to fish. Period. It wasn't that they couldn't fish, afford to fish the opens. They couldn't afford. They were selling their boats. They were just getting out of fishing, selling their fishing equipment because the economy was that bad.
If you're watching, please like and share the video.
So, real quick, can you scroll up? I just wanted to answer a question that I saw. Frank Malik said, "I hear so much about the new guys or the young guys winning because of forward-facing sonar. What about Brandon Polinick when he went to the elites and he won without FFS?" So, Ken Duke said the other night, the average age of I think it was Ken Duke. Don't quote me on that. I listened to a lot of podcasts this week. The average, if he looked at KVD, he looked at Brandon Palaniuk, he looked at David Dudley. He was looked at a lot of these major tournament winners, classic winners, FLW Cup winners. The average age that they qualified for their first classic was 22. It's not that much different than what it is today. With these, with these younger anglers coming in, it's, and the point is, like we said earlier, the younger people are generally going to dominate, not dominate, but they're going to do well because they have that drive, right?
They understand the electronics better.
Well,
we're going back before forward.
Oh yeah.
Your younger guys are they just have that drive. Mm-hmm. They have that drive to be successful, to make it in there. They have less obligations. They're gonna. Yeah. It's just one of those things. But I just wanted to touch that.
The farm system is that much better because when Brandon went through it, he went straight to the Federation. He didn't have high school or college. And you look at what Jordan Lee did when they fished college, and college fishing is better than when Jordan Lee was fishing.
Oh, the competition now compared to when Jordan and his brother won the college the college championship,
stupid,
is insane. And I'm not taking anything away from them. It was the field was not as stacked as it is now. Yeah, is what I'm saying. Is there were a lot of hammers that came out of that Jordan Lee, Matt Lee, Casey Ashley college era, but now it's like every school that's out there has 2 or 3 teams that could potentially win any tournament.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. What are your thoughts on the co-angler? Because I feel like maybe is it antiquated? Is it still a thing? Like, what are your views on that whole situation?
I have no problem. So here is what. I don't. Did you text him or because you were just talking about co-angler or making a note about co-anglers or something?
I didn't.
That's crazy.
No, I did not.
I saw him making a note about co-angler, how it affected co-anglers and BFLs or something. Or no, that was Kevin.
Kevin sent the comment in, and I'm sitting there I got the mouse over it. I'm circling it so Paul sees it. I'm like, here's the question. I'm like, it's a good one.
Let's start this out with, how does forward-facing sonar affect co-anglers? It sucks.
Tis not good.
However, if it doesn't matter if you have forward-facing sonar or you have a guy fishing offshore brush piles or offshore rock piles, it's the same situation. You're screwed unless the boater is a decent human being. It doesn't matter if the boater is a decent human being. At some point during the day, he's going to give you an opportunity to catch fish.
So if you had 2 worlds, and we're not talking about forward-facing sonar, the payouts are the same, the entry fees the same. One organization, you're going to have a random person hop in your boat, and the other organization, you just go out by yourself. You're going to always pick the co-angler one? No,
I would pick the opposite because I don't want to be worried about. I am the type of person that will make sure my co-angler gets on fish. And if I have a choice between the two, I'm going to fish without the co-angler. So that's one less thing that I have to worry about because I'm always worried about my co-angler catching fish.
Well, and it's not, I feel like this is a weird question when you ask people because people are so nervous to say the right answer. Like, oh, I don't know how to answer. It's like, well, it's like, do you really want to be an Uber? Like, it's just a weird thing with how much money we put into this thing as a boater. And I think that's what happened with this BFL forward-facing sonar thing is a lot of boaters got pissed. Like, I'm having a random person tell me what to do with my boat. Yeah, and I think a lot of people got that as the argument in their head, and it made them upset.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of money invested in forward-facing sonar and whatnot, and then
it's just fishing it.
Well, you're gonna have your league come to you and tell you that they're gonna limit what you're doing, and you can't do this, and yada yada. But you also, on the other side of it, you also have the other crowd that doesn't want to fish with it. So, I mean, obviously, I think the right side is more popular with the forward-facing sonar. Well, we'll see what the turnout is.
I thought we were talking about co-anglers, not forward-facing sonar.
It was more about like the co-angler. It was the co-angler versus boater dynamic that was spun up because of the forward-facing sonar earlier, where a lot of boaters seem like they were just mad because they finally let their feelings be heard, which is like, you're a guest on my boat. And that was really a through line on the comment section. Whereas the co-anglers, and not all of them, there's some really nice gentlemen out there that were like, yeah, but I want you to do this, this, and this for me.
Yeah.
And it's that weird friction that it finally felt like it got bubbled up
Oh,
to
yeah.
the surface because of forward-facing sonar of like, some people feel entitled that I get to be on your boat as a co-angler, and a lot of boaters like, F no, that's not how this works.
And it's funny, like Josh Torres in the comments has been he has drawn me as a co-angler a few times, and we've always had fun fishing together. We always had an enjoyable day. We both caught fish. Josh has always been very respectful when he got on my boat. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, we're gonna go. You're gonna go do what you go do what you're going to do. I'm going to make the most of it from the back of the boat. And I'm like, cool. I'll make sure that you have some casting angles and stuff like that. We fished quite a few times together. I think three or four tournaments that we've Bass Nation tournaments that we've fished together. And when you have a good dynamic from boater to co-angler, the day goes well. If I get on the boat and the co-angler says we need to do this, we're doing the exact opposite.
All right, so question, what do you do if the co-angler gets on your boat and he has one of those battery-powered backpacks with forward-facing sonar on it?
So I haven't experienced
Who's your dad?
Right? So the one thing, I have not experienced that, so I don't know.
Like seen it on YouTube and shit.
But I've seen it on
that,
YouTube.
But it's definitely happened.
For him.
As long as it's not taking up a ton of room on the boat when we're moving, it doesn't take you 10 minutes to put everything away.
To stow it.
Honestly, like, I don't care. If you want to spend your time hanging your handheld transducer over the side of the boat, go for it. As long as when I say we're moving, within 30 seconds you have everything put away.
Yeah.
Because I'm not waiting around, and your live scope might go off the back.
If all said and done, like, I could see that being something that co-anglers swap to if it's the last thing they can do is they can show up, they can be a co-angler, and they can run forward-facing sonar on the back of a boat.
I think
I could see it becoming more, obviously not like a huge thing, but I could see it happening.
Oh yeah, no, I can definitely see it happening. I think in that situation that, like, not talking about a rules thing on it, but as a common courtesy, if you're going to bring your own forward-facing sonar, you better limit the rest of your equipment to not
big time
to not have to take up so much room on the boat and things like that.
I'd call my boater ahead and even freaking ask, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I heard about that. I was going to mention that Panger's co on the final day of the Champlain regional had his own forward-facing sonar, and Panger said, I was a little about it, at first, but he's like, it was self-contained. It took the guy no time to set it up, no time to put it away when we were going to move. He never had to wait for the guy to put anything away. Yeah. He said it was really quiet.
That's
and he said they had a good time because, like, he would shine it, he would be shining around, and he would shine it, like, and see Matt's bait and be like, oh dude, you're about to get ate. So like they had a good time fishing together. So
I think it's kind of like when you give your kid a Game Boy. It's like your car rides are quiet, they're minding themselves. There's no arguments. There's no fighting. I don't see a problem with that. I guess my bigger thought is, if you are a co and going to spend that much money, why not just get a kayak and get into that side of things where you can win more money?
So on the other hand, too, I fished the TBF National Championship this year as a co-angler, and the learning experience was nice. Like,
that's true. I mean, learning, yeah.
I did. So and I want to specifically make mention of this because we were talking about the boaters being decent human beings. So I had a guy who was actually scoping shallow on the second day of that tournament, and he was essentially picking off individual fish on shallow points. like shallow clay points. I mean, when I say shallow, I mean like 1.5 feet deep. Perspective mode. There's a fish, throws a crankbait, boom, catches it. All right, we're moving on. And like I mean, I didn't really have anything to fish for behind him. Like he was literally picking single fish off of points. It was insane. If there was 2 fish there, he was picking both of them off.
Wow.
But what this guy did for me in the middle of the day, we were going from one side of the lake to the other. As we're getting ready to move, he goes, "You still got that Carolina rig rigged up?" I was like, "I can have it rigged up," because I just broke it off. I was like, "I can have it rigged up." He's like, "We'll go. There's a road bed over here. It's got a bunch of fish on it. We'll go over there for 15 minutes, let you catch a couple fish, and then I'm going to go back to doing what I need to do." And we stopped for 15, 20 minutes. I was able, I caught 6 fish off of it, 2 that measured. I had was plagued by those 15 and 5/8 fish, or 15 and 7/8 fish. I had a couple that were just short, but he gave me those 15 minutes. He knew there was a pile of fish there. He knew they weren't going to help him, but he said it was worth it for him to let me have 15 minutes to cast on the juice on this spot. Told me where the juice was, pointed his live scope, showed me exactly where to cast to make sure that I was hitting that spot, and it was perfect. And then we went the rest of the day, back to fishing the shallow stuff, and we had a good day because he gave me the opportunity to catch fish. I mean, I had the opportunity there to catch fish. It just didn't work out. I didn't, like I said, I caught 6, but only 2 measured.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I weighed in 3 fish, and I weighed in 3 fish that day, and it was fine because, was he kind of boating me the whole time? Yeah. But hey, guess what? In the middle of the day, he's like, "I got a spot for you. Let's go there, get you some fish, and then I'm going to go back to running my shallow stuff." And it was great. If more people did that, forward-facing sonar and co-anglers wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and then because I know the comment section will eventually start. I'm not against co-anglers. I'm against the rules that they have. I think the BFL should just do away with boater on boater draw because it's 2025. Yes. You spent your money. You can put a GoPro if you can afford a boat. If you're worried about that stuff, let you go out by yourself. That's fine. And honestly, if you want to pay a little bit more as a boater, not to have a co-angler, that's allowed. Boom. And then anyone can do whatever they want. And if people want to pay the extra price, so be it.
Funny story, Josh. So Josh just made a comment.
Wouldn't have any co-angler boats.
Josh just made a comment. He's that the guy said, "Oops, I missed that one." He missed one fish, and I caught it. Like he saw one fish. It was on a boat ramp. We came around this point. There was a boat ramp with some rock. He sees one fish. He makes like 15 casts over there. Doesn't catch it. He sees it swimming around. So he moves on with his crankbait. We're going down the bank. I fired a Senko over there, boom, and caught a 3-pounder. And he's like, "Damn." He's like, I made like 15 casts over there and couldn't get that fish to hit. I was like, "Oh, sorry about your luck." But so anyway, as far as like the rules around co-anglers, the boater on boater draws are stupid.
Why is that still a thing?
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a thing. I know they want 2 people in the boat to protect the integrity, but how many times have we heard the story of a guy purchasing a co-angler's fish? We know that's happened before, so we know that having 2 people in the boat doesn't stop it.
Cheaters cheat. It's just that you got to punish them when you catch them.
Yeah.
Buying
sorry.
co-angler's fish.
Sorry, Josh. I thought you were talking like my story from Texas, but anyway, so yeah, cheaters cheat. That's that's the thing, and I don't think the punishment for cheating. Now, I will say, there's a difference between a rules violation and cheating.
Mm-hmm.
If you forget to snap your life vest, you're not cheating. You violated a rule. If you did something to intentionally give you an advantage, if you did something to intentionally give you an advantage over the other anglers, that's cheating. If you accidentally ran a no-wake zone because you didn't see the 6 mile an hour buoy, that's not cheating. You made a mistake. You know, you didn't. Now, if you ran that 6 mile an hour zone because you had 5 minutes to go to weigh in and you were 7 minutes from the ramp, yeah, you kind of cheated.
Well, I mean, yeah.
You know, so it's a very subjective. Cheating can be a very subjective term.
Exactly. Putting spit on a ball versus stealing, you know, signs like the Astros did. Like, it's just, there's levels of what it is, degrees.
Yeah, there are, and I think, again, like the just quantify the penalties for different rules. Stop leaving it to the discretion of, whoa, what just happened over there? That was weird. Stop leaving the...
Just like spanked everything up in the comments.
No, I agree with you.
So yeah, so what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying? Sorry, I got really confused by some stuff that was going on the screen. You have to quantify the penalty of the rules. You can't leave it at the discretion of the tournament director, because it seems like you don't often get a consistent result. You know, one person may get a slap on the wrist, one person gets a $10,000 fine. You know, where it should be if you violated this rule, it should be an equal penalty.
I agree with that.
And make them public.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think all organizations are guilty of that, of keeping stuff too much in-house when it really would be better if they air their laundry.
I think they're so worried about bad publicity. And they don't want to be known. It's just a bunch of cheaters out there fishing. But if you expose the cheater and you say this is their penalty, it gives you legitimacy. It doesn't detract from you. It's it gives you more. I can't use my words tonight.
It's just about setting a standard. I mean, you saw this with, again, like going to different sports like football. Football had this big issue, you know, a couple of years ago too, with like the Patriots or anybody that cheats. Like, you're giving them a slap on the wrist because of who they are, and we all know that. Like, if somebody cheats, you gotta crack the whip on them. I don't care what their name is. You have to do that. Period.
And that's something that I've heard time and time again when we talk about this. You know, people who have been in situations that are around, not necessarily directly, you know, they weren't the cheater, but they've been around. They may be the one that reported it, and you know, they get told by the organization, it's like, oh well, you know, we don't want to ruin somebody's career. You didn't ruin their career; they ruined their career.
Yeah.
Yep. They chose to do the thing.
They cheated. The league didn't tell them to cheat. They did that. They had a set of rules to follow. They broke those rules. You know, look at the NFL. You can Google who got fined every week. Like, this person did this, this person did this, this person did this.
Well, unless you're Kansas City.
No, then you don't get fined. It's not that they don't report it; they just don't fine you.
Exactly.
But you know, typically any other sport, you know, that's publicized information, where you know you can see, okay, this person got fined because he did this, and you know, this was an illegal hit, you know. And we don't think, you know, because somebody got fined for, you know, leading with the helmet into a quarterback. We don't think that person's a dirty player just because they got fined for it.
No.
Just like if we did it in fishing, we wouldn't necessarily think that, because he got fined for that, that means everybody's a cheater. You know, it's a silly concept to think that, like.
I think a lot of people really do just like, they take some of the mistakes that people make, which are genuine mistakes, and they just
blow it.
They just label them as a bad guy.
Like
like you're Jesus walking on water or something like that. Everybody's made mistakes and done something they shouldn't have done before.
Oh, for sure, everybody. If you
I blasted a kayaker the other day.
With a gun or with what do you mean?
No, with
a John boat.
With a boat.
Okay. With a John boat.
So he admitted to a homicide.
I'm proud of my. I actually stopped and idled past some kayakers the other day on the Upper Bay.
Did you?
Yeah. Mostly because one was sitting right in the middle of the channel, and I didn't want to actually kill someone. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and to shit on my kayak friends too. It's just like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If you're gonna be out in certain areas, like I understand if you're in a cove and somebody whips out there being a dick, but if you're out on the river, the tidal Potomac, the Upper Bay, in the middle of Smith Mountain Lake, whatever, what do you think's gonna happen? You know?
right.
You know what?
If you're on the Upper Bay, you're paddling down the middle of the Mart Channel.
Yeah.
I give the kayakers that are fishing a little bit of slack because I know your purpose and I know what you're here for. And especially if you don't have a paddle kayak, like one of the foot control ones or something, you've come a long way. But if you're on a paddleboard or just a normal kayak and you're just out there in the middle of the channel,
Why?
oh, you're going down.
Why are you in the middle of the channel?
Yeah.
It's like the
paddleboarders are my favorite
It's
because
like
it's like oh, I am totally watching you eat shit.
It's like it's like the paddleboarders think that because they're on a paddleboard they need to follow the channel markers. Like you can literally paddleboard in 4 inches of water, and I'm only saying 4 inches because you can still get your paddle into the water.
You have like no training whatsoever. I guess like I can understand how you think that it just makes sense to be
They should have
within these markers, but it doesn't.
You should, in order to be on the water in a kayak or on a paddleboard, you should have to take a safety course, just like anybody who has a
Common sense isn't common.
Yeah, well, especially with paddleboarders, because you know the profile. Her name is Kylie. She goes to Starbucks. She has a shell necklace. This is her first time. She was crazy during spring break at Cancun, and
Hey, I don't
do this for her Instagram account.
Hold on, I don't hate on the paddleboarders because most of the time they're kind of nice to look at while I'm out on the water, not catching fish.
Like, you know what they are.
I was literally just thinking. I was like, sometimes they have nice butts.
I ain't gonna lie. I was on the gun pad. I was coming out the Quarry Canal. I was like right at the split, right at the Y, the Quarry Canal. And Sunday, and Candace was with me, and I was just like, look forward, look straight forward, look straight forward, look straight forward, because that girl on that paddleboard was smoking.
Yeah. Earl and Randy are not out there on a paddleboard.
No,
dude.
So I don't mind the paddle. I generally don't mind the paddleboarders because
there was
honestly, like I've never had a problem with a paddleboarder in an area where I'm running on plane. Generally, like, you know, they'll be in like the 6 mile an hour zone there, and yeah, they're in the middle, but like I can go around them. It's a 6 mile an hour zone, but I've never had a problem with a paddleboard. It's generally not kayak fishermen. I feel like a large percentage of the kayak fishermen understand that boats need to run through here. But
yes.
But the pleasure kayak.
It's the rental place. It's the rental place.
It's not even a rental place. It's pleasure kayakers.
Hey, what's up, Matt? Thanks for joining, brother.
It's the people that are just out. You know, they're just out paddling around. I had Sunday when I was out fishing Sunday, like and these were people fishing. I wouldn't call them fishermen. It was and his wife and their kid. And they're on kayaks, and they like I'm fishing a stretch of bank, and they literally pulled up to the tree, 30 feet in front of me, and started fishing.
Wow.
Like I'm less than a cast away from this tree, like getting ready to fish it. I'm like it didn't bother me at the time. I just thought it's just one of those stupid things. Like I just went around them.
And we're talking about ethics, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's a whole other conversation, because how I treat somebody that's clearly not fishing, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell those people real quick. It's like, all right, well, this person's an idiot. They don't know what they're doing.
Side note. I just want to mention that this was supposed to be talking about rules, and we have like totally not talked about
that. Is totally something that we do that. We totally do that. But hey, good part is like we can always do it again.
Yeah, and it was, and like there's not much, like I think we covered pretty much. One league is going with no rules. The other league is trying to split the baby a little bit and try to have some kind of maturity. And the other one's just doing cocaine off the dinner table.
Oh, so speaking of doing cocaine off the dinner table, here let's talk about that invitational rule, where
oh god,
you can't. And I may be wrong in how they do their boat draws because they do a lot of cocaine over there.
You're never wrong, Paul.
But their rule for forward-facing sonar is you can use it on day 1, but you can't use it on day 2. So does that mean if you get a bad?
He's like, what?
So if you get, and then you could use it on day 3 if you make the cut. So if I'm in day 1, it's day 1 and I get boat 100 out of 100, and I'm dead last and I can't get on any of my spots, and I just kind of have to, make do with what I can just kind of find during the day. Typically in a tournament, I would be able to make that up on day 2 because the field's going to be reversed. So let's say that I have. I mean, now, granted, they might tell you I need to find some forward-facing sonar stuff, and I need to find some non-forward-facing sonar stuff, right? But it doesn't give that angler an opportunity to that had that later boat draw to make up for missing what they could have had on day 1. Which is typically why you reverse draws, because if person A got there first on day 2 because they were boat number 1, guess what? They're boat 100 on day 2. So if you both found that spot in practice, it's going to flip-flop. And he may have caught him there on day 1, but you're getting there first on day 2.
Yeah, and the only thing I can say, God love the people over there at MLF, they will change, though. They are very good at pivoting. And you saw that when they went from every fish counts to your best 5, then we're going to go back. Like, they're okay with moving things around, and so if this doesn't work, they will change real freaking quick compared to the other organizations.
I think they ought to switch to just like the 5 smallest fish, make it a real challenge.
Or just like I don't know why they went to 5 fish, because it's like that was their bread and butter. You're different. Every fish counts. It's different. It's hard.
They were
appeasing. Not everyone can do it.
That was the one decision they made to appease the anglers, and that's why they'll never make another decision based on what the angler thought.
It didn't work. I mean,
it did. I mean, they didn't.
Why'd they go back?
They didn't lose. I don't think they lost viewership on it.
Then why'd they go back?
I think it was too confusing, to be honest.
Going from every fish to your best 5?
And now I don't want to insult anyone that may be a fan of MLF, but I think a lot of the fans of MLF are fishermen and not tournament fishermen. And
I can agree with that.
It's easier to look at a screen and go, oh, he's got 100 pounds versus he's got 100 pounds and this guy needs 10 pounds to catch up, versus a 5 fish where, oh, well, he's 5 pounds. He needs 5 pounds to catch up, but he's got a 4.5 in the live well. So that means he's got to either catch a 9 pounder or he's got to catch, 4 or 5.5s. And so it's, I think for the lay person, that every fish counts format is easier to follow.
I feel like MLF,
and they may not understand the 5 fish, a 5 fish limit period.
Well, and MLF was always every fish counts. Like that was.
I agree. I don't think they ever should have changed.
Yeah, and it's just that's what was weird though from a business decision. It's like Chick-fil-A saying spoilers, no more chicken, just cheeseburgers. It's like, so you just alienated your own fan base. Like that makes no. Again, they just make some goofy ass decisions, man. It's so weird.
Yeah, they do. They seem to make some really bizarre decisions, and I don't know, man. It's just the way that company is run in general. It would scare me if I was fishing on that tour. Because it's so volatile, and you can there's definite favoritism.
I think honestly, if the NPFL, if the ownership of that ran the BPT and MLF, I think that would be like the best of both worlds. Get rid of everyone at the top of MLF, and whoever the marketing genius and the people that are running NPFL, get them over there to run it. I think they could make that work where, first off, they would be like, hey, we're not trying to compete with Bass anymore. Bass, do your own thing. We don't care. We're just going to do our own thing over here, and that's that. And we'll do our own shtick. And if you're a viewer, you like Bass, do that. If you like this, that's fine. And everyone would then just settle down a little bit.
Yeah, and get rid of Boyd Duckett.
Oh, exactly. That's what I meant. Like the whole
FBD.
gone.
You can't. I think there's a.
But there's a reason Boyd's there.
He's like.
There's so many things that bother me about how MLF is run. With
Boyd is the Roger Goodell of fishing, and the fact is, the reason Boyd or Goodell is there is because the real people pulling the strings have them there, so he's taking the bullets and the arrows.
But
That's my tinfoil hat.
Here's the difference.
Love it.
He's Roger Goodell if Roger Goodell was also the quarterback of the Steelers.
Oh, no, I don't.
That's the biggest problem that I have with it is anything that, because Boyd's very invested in MLF. There's a lot of money there. He's not just a face person. Like some of those strings that get pulled are getting pulled by him, and that is a giant conflict of interest if he's also fishing the tournaments.
But if the only reason Boyd is still there,
we need to make sure and to prove this, we're going to see next year. I promise you, Boyd Duckett will be inside the cut of the anglers that get cut from the BPT. No, even though he's never there's zero possibility of him qualifying in the proper manner for him to qualify inside. I think they're cutting 35. There's no way that he's legitimately in the bottom 5. Has been in the bottom 5 like angler of the year every year. And there's no way that he's going to make the roster legitimately. And if he's on the roster, they lose all legitimate. There's zero legitimacy in that league now.
But again, that was the deal with the devil, the real puppet master in him made. The real puppet master behind this made that deal with him because
Jim
Boyd is willing. I think it's Johnny Morris.
I don't think it's Johnny Morris.
I think he is like Jeff Bezos of the fishing world.
Bass Pro Shops pulled their sponsorship.
I think they still own 50% though.
But they pulled all their sponsorship though.
But they still own 50%. Well, they don't own anything of Bass.
They don't own 50% because Jim Wilburn owns like 51.
49%.
Well, they can't own 49 because Boyd Duckett owns quite a large percentage too.
Let's see.
Gary Klein and Boyd Duckett both own quite a large percentage.
Major League Fishing.
Like, yeah, we're arguing about this. We have Google.
Yep. All right.
Bass Fishing Jesus.
Major League Fishing is owned by the Outdoor Channels Inc. and the Bass Pro Shop or Bass Pro Tour, BBT, each with a 50% stake. So now we're going to really go by the rabbit hole. What is 50% stake of the BPT? So I think that's what's split then amongst a bunch of people then.
So the Bass Pro Tour side is going to be the one that's split. That's going to be
interesting.
That's going to be where your your angler owners that were in there, KVD, Jeff Crete, Mike McClelland, those were all angler owners. So I'm guessing that they're going to fall under that 50% conglomerate.
Which then again, why is he still there then?
Who?
Someone is leaving Boyd there as the face.
So Boyd is going to be in that. Boyd's going to be in that a major part of that Bass Pro Tour ownership.
But my thought is, I think this is the interesting conversation. Does Boyd have full control of staying there, or is it basically somebody or a group is letting him stay in the position because he takes the slings and arrows?
I honestly think he has a lot more that he is weaseled and sold his soul to have way more pull in that organization than he should.
But who wants to take his job? Who would be the face? Because I heard some people say Kevin Van Dam. I think Kevin Van Dam would basically say hell no, because it'll damage your reputation being that person.
You can't. Well, if it was 6 or 7 years ago, it wouldn't. I would say probably.
I still don't think he would do it. It's just too much. Like, if you're the president of anything, people are going to hate you.
I don't. So it's funny. Like, Gary Klein is one of the founders and one of the owners.
And he's quiet.
I don't hate Gary Klein. You don't have to be. I don't hate Boyd Duckett because he's one of the owners. I hate it because of the image that he projects.
He's full of shit, man.
He's
got shit falling out of his mouth.
He's a snake oil salesman. His
rods suck.
He makes terrible product. He all of his baits are direct copies of other baits. He doesn't. They're nothing. There's nothing like. It's not even like he tried to change something on him.
That's a fucking rabbit
it's not even like
right there, dude.
Is he basically the commissioner, we could say, of Major League Fishing?
Yeah, he like you said. I think it was a good comparison, the Roger Goodell comparison.
Yeah. Name one sports commissioner that people just unanimously adored. Because I guess that's my point. Is like a person that would be right for that role. No one would do. It's like the presidency. Like no one actually wants to do the job that could do the job.
Well, yeah, you're always going to get hate because. It doesn't matter if you're looking at Major League Baseball, NFL, or professional fishing. It's a business, and as a commissioner, you're going to make decisions that are in general best for the business versus the players or the anglers. So there's always going to be hate there,
and that's why I think like a Zona or a Kevin Van Dam, it's probably a better business decision not to get involved in that because
I can understand that.
You're not going to get in the muck, which sucks because. Or maybe that's what you need is a commission is not fishing. It's just, hey, I'm from Wall Street. It's just about the stats, the numbers. Maybe that's the better move.
Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But
yeah,
guys,
it's 9/17.
It's 9/17. It's Thomas, man, dude, I can't thank you enough for joining the show last second tonight. Bringing your knowledge to the table and giving us your opinion on the rule changes tonight. The conversations that we have every time you come on the show are phenomenal, and absolutely love having you on the show. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and Thomas, I really enjoy our conversations that we have when we get to talk.
Yes.
If you ever need somebody. It's somebody.
This is some deep fishing talk.
If you need somebody to fill in,
deep fishing talk.
If you need somebody, if you want somebody to if you need somebody to fill in, on your podcast sometime, if you need a guest, just hit me up. I will talk fishing with you for hours.
Nah, this was fantastic, and thanks for saving me from dinner with my in-laws. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we definitely did him a favor.
So, hey man, appreciate you very much. We will be in contact, and everybody else, man, thank you guys very much for joining the show tonight. We appreciate you. We also appreciate our sponsors, man. East Coast IV, Mobile Auto Services, Tailored Lures, UMA Lure Company, Bass Munitions. We have some really great people behind us that make this thing happen, and they get us out on the water, and they put fish in our boat. So click on those links in our Facebook description, check them out, and give them some love as well. And with that being said,
have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. Thomas, you're the man.